Hillary Clinton, the DNC, Fusion GPS, and former British spy Christopher Steele, they should be very concerned. We'll explain all of this. And brand new tonight, the president blasting the corrupt media, the Democrats, after the special counsel's indictment of 13 Russian nationals confirmed everything he's been saying. They're not telling you this. Now, there was no Trump-Russia collusion. The Russian interference did not impact the election outcome. We also have a report tonight, Byron York, laying out why the media and Democrats are overblowing what is in Mueller's indictment. His analysis tonight will stun you. It shouldn't be a surprise, which we will explain. It has been going on for decades. Just ask President Barack Obama. We have damning videos to show you. And later, big breaking news from Attorney General Jeff Sessions. He is saying tonight that the DOJ, FISA abuses, and the Clinton bought and paid for dossier will be investigated. Finally. First, tonight's opening monologue. All right, tonight we start with President Barack Obama ignoring a major warning in 2014 that Russia would try to, in fact, interfere in America's elections. So, what did Obama do in 2016, 2015, 2014? Did he even try to stop it? Absolutely not. Instead, just weeks before the election, listen to what then President Obama said.
I have never seen in my lifetime or in modern political history any presidential candidate trying to discredit the elections and the election process before votes have even taken place. It's unprecedented. It happens to be based on no facts. There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. And so I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes.
No serious person? Really, Barack Obama? He owes you, the American people, tonight an explanation. Why didn't he know? And better yet, how did he not know when he was warned in 2014? That sounds like a dereliction of duty. So it's time for President Obama to start talking, maybe even under oath. And now that you have that important background information, it makes sense why the president is firing back against this completely biased news media in this country and the Democratic Party that have wanted to destroy him from day one over this phony Russia collusion conspiracy theory. Now, the facts do not matter to the left. They have now managed to convince themselves by repeating their talking points in their echo chamber that somehow, in some way, President Trump colluded with the Russians, even though, as we have repeatedly pointed out, long over a year, to this day, there is no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. Now, the only concrete evidence of collusion with Russia that we have is Hillary Clinton and her bought and paid for dossier that's filled with Russian lies, Russian government lies, and propaganda and salacious details that were never verified. She used that, bought that to influence an election. So just like he always does, President Trump, he's fighting back. And he's fighting back on Twitter to react to Mueller's indictment of these 13 Russian nationals for the 2016 election meddling. Now, the president writes, quote, how funny that the fake news media doesn't want to say the Russian group was formed in 2014, long before my run for president. Maybe they knew I was going to run even though I did not know. Robert Mueller's indictment clearly lays out that this Russian attempt to influence the election, it started in 2014 under Obama's watch, and he was warned, and he did nothing to stop it. In fact, by the way, go back to 2012 during a presidential debate. Remember Barack Obama mocking Mitt Romney for saying Russia still posed a very serious foreign policy threat. Mitt Romney was right. Obama was wrong. And, of course, the media ignored all the key facts and findings in the Mueller indictment. Now, you in the media, you corrupt people in the media, you need to listen closely, very closely, to what the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, said while announcing the charges on Friday. Pay very close attention. You may actually learn something.
Now, there is no allegation in this indictment that any American was a knowing participant in this illegal activity. There is no allegation in the indictment that the charged conduct altered the outcome of the 2016 election. After the election, the defendants allegedly staged rallies to support the president-elect while simultaneously staging rallies to protest his election. For example, the defendants organized one rally to support the president-elect and another rally to oppose him, both in New York on the same day.
Wait, did I just hear it? No Americans were wittingly involved in this Russian effort. Now, the main goal of Russia was to sow widespread political discord. And after the election, these Russian cyber trolls, what did they do? They were trying to undermine the president-elect, Donald Trump. They were organizing dueling Trump rallies in New York City and an anti-Trump rally in Charlotte, North Carolina. Instead of focusing what is actually in this Mueller indictment, what Rod Rosenstein said, that corrupt media of yours, they're trying to use it to further their fake news Russia conspiracy narrative. Take a look. We have the proof.
And really the goal here was simple: damage Hillary Clinton and elect Donald Trump. And these Russians allegedly went to great lengths.
He's found this incredible network of meddling, and now he has kind of a stronger basis on which to go and look at collusion, the emails. This didn't deal with the hacking of the emails and the issue of obstruction of justice.
What's going on here is establishing an underlying crime, and then anything else henceforth is going to be conspiracy to obstruct or to collude.
There may well be information, there may well be lots of evidence that there was not only unwitting but witting assistance from the Trump campaign.
I think that the president has continued to abdicate responsibility here about leading the country in response to an attack on the most core fundamental part of our democracy, our free and fair elections.
He's the dumbest attorney on TV. What the destroyed Trump media also missed were key points and pieces of information about what is not in the Mueller indictment. It has nothing about Donald Trump colluding with the Russians. By the way, we still have zero evidence. I'm waiting. It says nothing about members of the Trump campaign colluding with the Russians. It says nothing about Donald Trump Jr. colluding with the Russians. It says nothing about the president obstructing justice. Liberal media, are you paying attention? Do you even care about the truth? Now, President Trump has been saying that fact over and over and over again. Take a look.
There has been no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russians, or Trump and Russians. No collusion. But bottom line, they all say there's no collusion. And there is no collusion. There was absolutely no collusion. Everybody knows it.
Let's put it this way. There is absolutely no collusion. That has been proven. There is absolutely no collusion. I didn't make a phone call to Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. Everybody knows it. What has been shown is no collusion. No collusion. There's been absolutely no collusion.
Now, the president also tweeted this weekend, quote, "I never said Russia did not meddle in the election. I said it may be Russia or China or another country or group, or it may be a 400-pound genius sitting in bed and playing with his computer. The Russian hoax was that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia, and it never did." And then he added, quote, "If it was the goal of Russia to create discord, disruption, chaos within the U.S., then with all the committee hearings, investigations, and party hatred, they have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They are laughing their asses off in Moscow. Get smart, America." Think about it. The president's right. For over a year, Russia has, in fact, been laughing at us. Democrats, the media, have been playing right into Putin's hands by creating chaos and political discord, just what they wanted. And frankly, it's working better than Russia could have ever dreamed of. Now, that is what this Russian effort was all about, causing chaos, political unrest in this country. Now, the Washington Examiner's Byron York, he'll join us later tonight. He is out with a great article, which is entitled "A Non-Alarmist Reading of the Mueller Russia Indictment." Now, in the piece, York makes some very key points, namely that Russians started all of this in 2014. Donald Trump wasn't running. The focus was on damaging Hillary Clinton. Remember, because everyone thought she was going to win. All of you in the media, you were laughing at the idea of Donald Trump running. Now, Byron York also cites figures from the Senate Intelligence Committee that in the key battleground states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the Russians only spent $3,000 on Facebook ads. Now, also, the indictment is very vague about how much these Russian trolls spent on social media ads. It only says they spent, quote, thousands every month. Now, that number is small when you compare it to the combined $2.4 billion that the Clinton and Trump campaigns spent during the election, mostly Clinton. That's not that much money. Also tonight, a Facebook executive, he's sounding off about the Russia investigation. His name is Rob Goldman. He's the vice president of advertising at Facebook. He set the record straight on Twitter over the weekend, writing, quote, the majority of the Russian ads spent happened after the election, their spend. Now, we shared that fact, but very few outlets have covered it because it doesn't align with the main media narrative of Trump and the election. And he goes on, quote, the main goal of the Russian propaganda and misinformation effort is to divide America by using our institutions like freedom of speech, social media against us. It has stoked fear and hatred amongst Americans. It is working incredibly well. We are quite divided as a nation. Even Facebook is throwing cold water on the media's fake news narrative about Mueller's indictment. Now, let's get back to Obama's failure to stop this Russian interference. Congressman Devin Nunes, back in 2014, he raised a red flag that, yes, Vladimir Putin needed to be watched closely. But Obama didn't seem to care. And even 2 weeks before the election, he's lecturing Trump. Stop whining. It could never happen here. Now, remember, as NBC News pointed out, Obama didn't do more to combat Russia. He thought Hillary was a shoo-in. Why interrupt this? And what's even more disturbing is that there were even earlier warning signs from Russia. We have been telling you on this program how Vladimir Putin had Russian operatives inside America, right here on our soil, and how they were involved in a sophisticated plot. It started in 2009. It had a main objective to get a foothold in America's uranium market. We actually had an FBI informant. We now know his name, Douglas Campbell. And we've been telling you about this guy. This guy now has testified before 3 congressional committees, and literally he was uncovering at the time in 2009 and 10 that Putin and his operatives were involved in bribery and kickbacks and money laundering and racketeering and extortion, all while corrupt Uranium One deal, that was all being approved 18 months later. He couldn't understand why they didn't take his intelligence, and that gave Russia, a hostile foreign actor, control of 20% of America's uranium? Who would be this stupid to do this? Well, apparently Obama and Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder, and then at the time, the FBI Director Robert Mueller. And by the way, Mueller, when are you going to answer questions about this? America already, we don't have enough uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons. Why would we give 20% to a hostile nation, Russia, and a hostile actor, Putin? It never made sense. It doesn't make sense. And here we are years later, and the media, the Democrats, they are shocked. They're just flabbergasted that Russia would ever even dare to try to influence our election, even though, as I just explained, they were easily able to be involved in bribery, extortion, kickbacks, money laundering, and secure 20% of America's uranium. Why would they stop? They already know we're being stupid. Plus, has the left forgotten what President Obama tried to do to Israel? Oh, influencing elections is wrong? Tell that to the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, America's closest ally in the Middle East. Remember, the congressional investigation found that back in 2014, an Israeli political group used 300,000 taxpayer dollars, the Obama State Department, in a grant to create a political apparatus to try and defeat our closest ally in the Middle East, the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. And it doesn't stop there. The U.S., if it's so wrong, we've been involved in influencing elections. That dates back to places like Italy, Iran, Guatemala, Chile, Nicaragua. And those are just a few examples. And take a look at what the former CIA director, James Woolsey, told Laura Ingraham about the U.S. and how we interfere in foreign elections. Take a look.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections? Oh, probably, but it was for the good of the system in order to avoid the communists from taking over. For example, in Europe in 47, 48, 49, the Greeks and the Italians, we
don't do that now, though. We don't mess around other people's elections,
only for a very good cause.
Can you do that? Do a Vine video on a former CIA director.
Only for a very good cause in the interests of democracy.
Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying America should not be doing this. I do believe we ought to be doing this on a regular basis. I believe in intelligence. I believe in covert operations, plausible deniability. I believe in it all. Thank God we have good people in the CIA, the intelligence community, FBI, and others, military, that are doing this every day. But it's beyond naive to think that this wouldn't happen to us, especially given Russia's success with Uranium One back in 2009 and 10. And another, by the way, is, acting surprised by the Russian election meddling. All these people in the media, they're either flat out lying to you or they're just totally ignorant. You pick. Now, either the Obama administration was not prepared for Russia trying to interfere in our election, or his administration made a choice to ignore the threat. Probably the latter. Probably because they thought Hillary was going to win. It's that simple. And that's why President Obama tonight, if you really care about this, owes you, the American people, an explanation. Now, also breaking at this hour, now that Robert Mueller has indicted the 13 Russian nationals, very serious legal questions are being raised about Hillary Clinton, about the DNC, about the law firm Perkins Coie, about Fusion GPS, and about that former British spy Christopher Steele. Now, think about this. Look at this headline from the website Law and Crime. Quote, does Mueller indictment mean Clinton campaign can be indicted for Christopher Steele? Wait a minute. Is there a double standard? The article makes some fascinating legal points. For example, Robert Mueller indicted the Russian trolls in part for failing to register as foreign agents and for not reporting their activities to the Federal Elections Commission. Okay, if that's the legal standard that Robert Mueller has set up, fine. Then the special counsel should also be looking into Hillary Clinton, the DNC, Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie, and Christopher Steele. And here's why. Steele is a foreign citizen, a former British spy. He was paid by Fusion GPS through that law firm, Perkins Coie, the law firm tied to the Clinton campaign and the DNC. We've not seen anything to suggest that Steele was a registered foreign agent, that he reported to the FCC that he was being compensated. Okay, if that's all true, given that information, well, that would mean that Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie, the DNC, the Clinton campaign, and Christopher Steele should all be in serious legal jeopardy. At a very minimum, Mueller should be investigating them. Or is there a double standard, Mr. Mueller? Now, there's already been a complaint filed with the FEC against the Clinton campaign and the DNC, accusing them of violating campaign finance laws for failing to disclose the up to $12 million that was shelled out to fund the dossier. And we know that the dossier was used to influence the election. That was the whole point, to use lies to manipulate you, the American people. We also know now that it was also used by the FBI to get that FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign and in an election year, an opposition party candidate. Now, that is the only evidence we have after over a year, going on a year and a half, of Russian collusion in 2016 that we know exists. Here with reaction, Fox News contributor, investigative reporter Sarah Carter, civil rights, criminal defense attorney David Schoen, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. What about that legal argument
that Robert Barnes was making in Law and Crime? It's a great legal argument. Look, it's going to end badly for Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS. They well knew that they were taking money from a political campaign and paying it to a foreign national, Christopher Steele. It's a violation of the campaign laws, and it's also a conspiracy to engage illegally with an unregistered foreign agent. So he's in big trouble, Fusion GPS, Christopher Steele. The question is, did Hillary Clinton actually know this along with the DNC? And if they did,
that's her campaign money.
That's right. But, you know, she would claim, oh, gee, I didn't know how all my money was spent. You know, she will always claim.
If that is the argument that they're using against the Russian nationals, why wouldn't it apply here? But then again, look at the team he appointed, your breaking news article about Andrew Weissman.
That's correct, Sean. I mean, if you just look at Andrew Weissman, the case of Andrew Weissman on its face, we have half of the special counsel, half of the people that were appointed by Robert Mueller were openly donors to Hillary Clinton. So we know that, one, for a fact. Two, Andrew Weissman was reprimanded in the past quite extensively, in one case in 1997 by a judge for withholding exculpatory evidence. But if we look at Andrew Weissman, he also attended, allegedly, Hillary Clinton's party on election night. He was also very supportive of Sally Yates, who basically stated that she wasn't going to follow through with President Trump's orders. There's a long list of reasons why people should be concerned about the makeup of the special counsel.
And David Schoen, you actually met. We expect the Inspector General report by Mr. Horowitz to come out next month, maybe in a couple of weeks. You met with him, and you have actually spoken at length with law enforcement officials about the tactics of what the New York Times calls Robert Mueller's pit bull, Andrew Weissman.
That's right. I met with the Inspector General a couple of years ago, actually, about a broad set of problems involving Weissman and some of his colleagues in the Eastern District of New York that secured convictions of people who were not guilty of the crimes they were convicted of. And, frankly, the evidence overwhelming that Mr. Weissman knew that at the time. Can you imagine, though, I'm thinking as I'm listening to you, with the secrecy surrounding a warrant application to the FISA court, to have someone who's a fellow traveler of these folks submitting applications. We know something from the Nunes memo about what was omitted from those applications.
Yeah, it wasn't verified. And they didn't tell who paid for it, did they?
That's right. And we may know more. I know that Congressman Nunes and Congressman Goodlatte have asked the FISA court to provide additional information on the underlying documents.
Let me ask you this.
And the court...
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was going to say, the court has said this is a novel issue. They want to think about it. But go to the Justice Department. We welcome the Justice Department to turn over those documents to you. So I think the problem is here, if you have a person with an agenda, like an Andrew Weissman, who in the normal scheme of things, for example, in that Eastern District of New York court case that I told you about, in which the judge reprimanded him, suggested he should be sent for disciplinary action, that order was withdrawn at the request of the U.S. attorney, which I say gave Weissman and his ilk license to continue with withholding evidence.
You can't withhold exculpatory evidence twice.
And you can't deceive a court and lie to a judge. And that is what appears to have happened at the hands of James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, and Sally Yates. They signed off on the documents, verifying their truth and authenticity. It appears that that was all a lie, and that's 6 different felonies: perjury, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, abuse of power. You go on and on.
All right, thank you all. Amazing. When we come back, I'm sorry, Michelle Malkin, straight ahead.
I just want
to... This is where life expresses its
ominous shadow over the future of the Trump administration. Doom, gloom, hysteria, daily. And they've been wrong the whole time.
It's now obvious that the Russians were trying to interfere in our election.
Well, it appears the stress might be getting to him.
This is getting closer and closer and closer to the Trump inner circle. Are the White House staff getting more and more worried about that, or is this just Donald Trump freaking out about it alone?
It may just be Donald Trump freaking out about it alone, but his staff has to be freaking out about his freak out, right?
The big stuff is probably yet to come, and indeed it does seem as though Mueller is just beginning to lay the groundwork, but stay tuned for more.
What concerns me is that Donald Trump seems to be more upset about the Mueller investigation and what came out from that this Saturday morning than these kids who were shot.
I think Trump's got some problems. I don't think Mueller would have taken the case if he didn't see a serious problem here.
Some of the dumbest people work in this profession. Joining us now, Michelle Malkin investigates CRTV. Michelle Malkin. Okay. Hillary Rodham Clinton paid for Russian and Russian government lies to lie to the American people in the lead up to the election. Then it wasn't verified. It was used to get a FISA warrant because they never told the judge the truth. And we have Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder, Barack Obama administration. We have Putin operatives involved in money laundering, extortion, kickbacks, and bribery. and they got 20% of America's uranium. Nobody in the media is telling their viewers about these important things. Why?
Because it doesn't fit their narratives, and they are going to go kicking and screaming like toddlers in a tantrum as long as they can to deny the truths that you are reporting nightly, Sean. And the reaction and the responses that you showed in the wake of this underwhelming indictment on Friday show that so much of the opposition media is part of their own 4-H club. You mentioned hysteria. Well, it's also hyperbole, hyperventilation, and also hypocrisy. Because when there are plain and obvious neon flashing signs and evidence of foreign meddling and corruption, not just the Uranium One deal, but so many others over the stretch of both Republican and Democrat administrations, this 4-H club of the opposition media has been nowhere to be found. And you have to have a little bit of historical perspective here, too, Sean. I mean, these are the same people that looked the other way at Walter Duranty and the clear and convincing and overwhelming infiltration of communist agents during the Roosevelt administration. These are people who have looked the other way at Saudi and Chinese and Mexican meddling in our elections. So the idea that they care now and are touting this indictment as somehow on the order of 9/11 or Pearl Harbor, as some of these more hysterical journalists have done, please. Their hypocrisy is showing, and it's the true colors of this media. They don't care about foreign meddling in this election. They care about bringing down President Trump.
You know, I'll give you, it's always been about that. You know what I've never understood about Mueller? One guy in the world, Julian Assange, he knows where he got his information from, doesn't he? In terms of the DNC. Now, if they wanted to find out the leak and where that, they would ask him. At least ask. At least try to talk to the guy. That's never happened. So what I see about Mueller is here you have all of this other evidence. Mueller was the FBI director when we had an informant inside of the actual operation of Vladimir Putin in this country. And the fact that the media is acting all surprised and feigning such moral outrage, it is just one huge, massive lie. It's not true, Michelle, because he got 20% of our uranium. How stupid are we that he got 20% of our uranium? We handed it to him, and we knew these crimes were committed on our soil, and they did nothing.
Yes, that's right. You know, in 2009, I came out with a book called Culture of Corruption, and I pointed to all of the ways in which Chicago and the Potomac and the Obama administration were endangering our national security, our public safety, every last pillar of civil order in our country. And I feel somewhat vindicated, but I'm not going to cheer about it. The deep state has posed the greatest amount of threat to the fabric of our nation, and we certainly didn't need 13 Russian trolls to sow that division and chaos, because so much of it, of course, has been advanced not just by the Obama operatives that remain in the deep state. For goodness sake, there are Clinton and Carter-era barnacles still in that deep state and in Foggy Bottom and embedded in all of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies. But, of course, the biggest sowers of division within American soil are those operatives in the so-called mainstream media.
So corrupt, and it's all boomeranging back. I said 2018 will be the year of the boomerang as it relates to these issues. Michelle, as always, thank you. When we come back, the Attorney General tonight made a huge announcement about potential Obama-era surveillance abuses. We'll explain straight ahead.
Diabetes can be a daily struggle, even if you're trying your best.
The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, made a major announcement yesterday in an interview right here on the Fox News channel. Sessions told our own Maria Bartiromo that the Justice Department will be investigating potential FISA abuses committed by the Obama administration. Finally, take a look.
Are you, sir, investigating the fact that the FBI used the dossier to get a wiretap against Trump associates, and they did not tell the FISA court that the Democrats and Hillary Clinton paid for that dossier?
Let me tell you, every FISA warrant based on facts submitted to that court have to be accurate. That will be investigated and looked at, and we are not going to participate as a Department of Justice in providing anything less than the proper disclosure to the court before they issue a FISA warrant.
Now with reaction from the Washington Examiner, Fox News contributor Byron York, former deputy assistant to the president, Fox News national security analyst Sebastian Gorka. You know, it's very interesting because we learned first, and we broke it here on this program, Sebastian, that Jeff Sessions never recused himself from the Uranium One issue, and a few weeks back, lo and behold, we had another indictment. Everybody thought that was a dead issue. I think Hillary's talking point is, oh, that's been adjudicated. Wrong. So that's ongoing, and he's saying here, I think what I'm hearing is if you lie to a FISA judge, you withhold information, a footnote that says it might have some political connections is not that the other candidate paid for these lies. So I took that to be a very serious shot across the bow.
Absolutely, Sean. So everybody's talking about the 13 indictments. Byron just wrote a very good piece about it. But the real story that we have to get to the bottom of are the leaks out of the White House. There are 27 referrals, criminal referrals at DOJ looking into the leaks, including the leak of the phone conversation between Mike Flynn and the Russian ambassador. Serious national security investigations. Secondly, Uranium One, absolutely strategic level. It's hard to imagine something larger than the sale of 20% of our uranium when we have laws on the books right now, Sean, that say America must be self-reliant on uranium. We must not import it from anybody else. And Hillary Clinton approved the sale of uranium as her husband was getting $500,000 speaking fees. So there's that. There's the Clinton Foundation. It's just the tip of the iceberg. These things take time, but rest assured, justice will be done.
All right, let me go to Byron. You had a great column out last night is when I first saw it. By the way, your website, the Washington Examiner's website, is horrible. I had to get you to cut and paste it and send it to me. You know, it's every time you click on it,
thanks so much.
Anti-smoking thing comes up again and again and again. It drives me nuts. But I want you to go through this because you're really saying, if you really look at the Mueller indictment, the way you're looking at it, it's not what people think, is it?
You know, I think you need to look at this indictment in conjunction with the testimony of Facebook and other social media executives on Capitol Hill a few months ago. There's a lot of stuff that they talked about that's not in the indictment. And what they basically talk about is some of the scale of this Russian operation. They talk about the Russians spent about $100,000 on Facebook ads. That compares to $81 million that the Clinton and Trump campaign spent on Facebook ads. They talked about how just 44% of those ad impressions, when they're up on a screen somewhere, 44% of those were before the election. 56% were after the election, where they obviously had no chance of influencing the election. And the amount of money that the Russians spent in some key states, because as you know in the indictment it talks about how the Russians became sophisticated, they learned what purple states were, and they were directing their efforts. In the state of Pennsylvania, according to Facebook, they spent $300. In Michigan, they spent $823, and in Wisconsin, they spent $1,979. The problem was all but $54 of that was before the primary, not in the general election. So all of that is testimony that we had before Congress that's really relevant to this indictment.
Yeah, facts and context and texture mean an awful lot, except it doesn't fit a media narrative. That's great reporting on your part. Let me go back to you, Sebastian, because this is now what goes to the heart of this for me. Everybody so sanctimoniously and in their pompous arrogance talks about this Russian influence. Okay, we can't talk about Russian influence and ignore Uranium One. We can't talk about Russian influence and ignore the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian government dossier, can we?
How can we ignore, again, we've got to stick to the facts of the matter. And the opposition research file that Hillary and the DNC paid more than $12 million for, one file, was used to illegally obtain a surveillance warrant against an American national during a presidential campaign. That's the enormity. It makes Watergate pale by comparison. It's a massive scandal.
Last word, Byron.
Well, I think we're just going to see more and more information about this. As a matter of fact, I think tomorrow we're going to see the House Intelligence Committee asking for more information from a variety of current and former officials about what did they know about this dossier. When did they first hear about it? When did they first learn that it was supported and bankrolled by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC? Because these are very basic questions, and we still don't know the answers to some of them.
Well, your reporting has stood very much independent and apart from the herd, if you will, of those that live in that media bubble. Thank you both. We appreciate it. Good commentary.
Thank you, Sean.
When we come back, Rush Limbaugh on what the Russia probe is really all about. You don't want to miss this. Next. Limbaugh sat down with an interview on Fox News Sunday yesterday where he had some very strong words about this Russian probe and what he believes is the real reason for this. Take a watch.
I think this is all politics, and it's, Chris, it hasn't changed from the get-go. It is about protecting Hillary and Obama. Obama is the primary person being protected here because all of this spying and all of this collusion to destroy Trump happened with his knowledge and probably encouragement.
All right.
And the reason Hillary isn't charged is because that would mean Obama would have to be exposed as participating in the scheme, too.
All right.
Dead on. Former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, civil rights attorney Darryl Parks join us. Darryl, does Russia involvement in the United States, does that bother you?
Without question, it bothers me, Sean, especially when they meddle with our elections.
Does it bother you that
Hillary?
Does it bother you that Hillary's campaign and the DNC paid $12 million for what turned out to be Russian lies to manipulate the American people before an election? Does that bother you?
If that's true, but I don't think it's true, though. I really don't think it's true.
Okay,
I think the key here, though, is the connection between the Trump administration
and Russia. The Russian dossier is filled with lies about Donald Trump. It was never verified and then used for a FISA warrant. Does that part of the Russia interference bother you, that she paid Russian and even Russian government sources for those lies? Does that bother you?
Well, it's not an issue whether it bothers me. The issue, though, is the indictment issues that were presented last week.
The issue is I'm trying to find consistent. Does it bother you that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama's administration, that we knew Putin had operatives in America? Does it bother you that Putin and his hostile regime got 20% of uranium rights in America and that the Clintons got a lot of money back in their coffers? Should we be concerned about that Russian interference? Does that bother you?
Well, I think you got to prove what is the connection to the Clintons and the uranium money. You haven't shown that yet.
All right, uranium. Oh, yeah. Bill Clinton doubled his speaking fees, and all the people involved in the deal kick back money to the Clinton Foundation. Dan Bongino.
You know, it's awfully coincidental, by the way, that most of the people involved in the uranium one deal either paid massive speaking fees, and also President Clinton takes a trip over to Kazakhstan as a deal for Kazakh uranium takes place with a guy who later donates, by the way, a large swath of his proceeds over to the Clinton Foundation. But the hypocrisy on this thing is fascinating. We know the source of the dossier was the Russians and the Clinton campaign. Nobody's bothered by that at all. Yet in this case of fairy tale-like Russian collusion with the Trump team, nobody can show you who the colluders are or how the collusion happened, and they're all losing their minds.
Now, isn't it interesting that the bank that's paying Clinton and that's connected to the Rosatom in Russia, their nuclear group that they have there, isn't it interesting they double Bill Clinton's speaking fee for that speech at that very critical time? That doesn't seem fishy to you? Does it not seem fishy to you that all the people involved in that deal in Canada, Frank Gustra, all these other people, that they were throwing money at the Clinton Foundation and they needed Hillary to sign off on that deal that gave Uranium One 20% of our uranium control to Putin?
I think you got to be careful, Sean. I don't think there's
What
a
do I
connection
have to be careful about?
right now.
I'm telling the truth.
Well, I think the problem, though, now are the connections that Mueller is finding between the Trump administration and Russia. That's the real issue.
You only
right
care
here,
about, I think what I'm hearing is you only care about Trump and Russia. Do you have any evidence that you can tell Dan Bongino tonight, any evidence, any proof at all, of Trump-Russia collusion? It's been a year and a half. Give me the evidence. What is it?
I think the 37 pages of the indictment tells all the story we need to hear right now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It speaks for itself.
Darrell, where in the indictment does it point to anybody who wittingly colluded? Wittingly means knowingly. Where does it say that?
What it clearly shows.
No. Where does it say that in the indictment? No. Where does it?
In the election.
Let me ask you. No, it doesn't say that. And as a matter of fact, Darrell, if you read line 53, are you a lawyer? If you read line 53 in the indictment, it says they supported groups. One of them was called "Support Hillary, Save American Muslims." Did you see that, or did you miss that one? That's line 53, by the way.
Without question. I think the indictment clearly lays out who Russia supported. That's what it does.
Really? Through a Support Hillary group. How exactly did that happen? Did you read the indictment, or are you just making this up?
I read all 37 pages.
So you must have missed that line 53.53, where it says Support Hillary, Save American Muslims. They supported that group. Did you see that one, too?
I think without question, for those people who read the document,
you keep saying that, but you must not have read the document. Yeah, support Hillary, save American Muslims. That's in the indictment, which you didn't read, and you say you did. Nice work, though.
I did.
Yeah, well, you missed line 53. Go check that out. Come back in another show.
Well, I think you got to read the whole document. And I think when you read the whole document, it's rather clear.
Are we in bizarro Superman land? I'm telling you, it's in the indictment on national television. You think I'm making this up? Look it up yourself.
Well,
you guys want to have a bet on this? I'll broker it.
What it clearly says.
I don't want to take his money.
The thing is, if after 18 months, you can't give me any evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, can you?
Well, I think you got to be careful. You use the word collusion like the president does.
But that's what they're investigating for you. That's what the media has been telling us. Give me any evidence you got, whatever you got.
Well, I think you got to be clear. Collusion is not a legal term that would fit the situation as to whether there was a crime.
So the bottom line is you have none. You don't have any.
Well, but I think time will tell that I'm right.
But he wants a legal investigation. Right. It's what.